Hello, and welcome to If You Give a Midge a Cookie, a story about how a woman named Rachel Maxey ruined my life. Hello Glamour Ghouls, and welcome back. If you are new here, my name is Midge Munster, and on this channel we do all things campy, kooky, glamorous, and spooky. And today is our first Decorate With Me video of 2024. Many of you know I had a challenging year last year, and I really didn't get the chance to decorate my house the way that I normally would. So I have been positively champing at the bit to get decorating. I am so excited to say that we are bringing back the witch dining room this year. I think the last time we did it was 2021 or maybe 22. I want to say we did witch dining room, and then we did vampire dining room, and then we did like a vintage Halloween dining room. So I think it's been 3 years since we've done this. And what's funny is if you watch my video that I just did like 3 or 4 videos back where we organized my basement, in my head, that dining room was like so grandiose. And it's so funny now because looking back at that video, I went back and watched it, and it was like, it's like basically no decor in the scheme of things. In the scheme of like how I like to decorate now, my style and just my ability to decorate a space has evolved so much in those 3 or 4 years that it's so funny now just to look at that, and the fact that at that time I was like, I really did that. But the really exciting thing about that is we have somewhere to go from there. This is certainly not going to be just like a redo of that. I have accumulated a lot more decor since then. My just like taste level and the way that I use spaces has changed a lot. So it's going to be really exciting to see where this version of the witch dining room leads as opposed to that earlier version. So we're gonna jump right in because what I want to do in here this year, I think it's gonna take me a couple of days to get it all together, so I want to get started.
But it did not take Midge just a couple of days. It took her the entire month of September. This intro footage was filmed on September 3rd, so what happened? Let's find out together.
So I was working on the dining room Decorate With Me video. That was supposed to be the first video that came out in September. As you can see, it wasn't. I started working on it, and I wanted to add a couple projects, and then I came up with a couple more ideas. And then Miss Rachel Maxey had the audacity to release this video of her making her little sewing room into a hobbit hole, and very specifically these like wood planks that she made spoke to me and opened up a trapdoor in my brain. I knew that the dining room was going to be my big project this year. I really wanted it to have like an oomph factor. I wanted it to be fully immersive, very like walking onto a theater set, walking onto a movie set, being fully like brought into the world that I'm creating. And when you look at reference photos of like the Hocus Pocus house, or other cottage style buildings that would have been built in England or in New England around the time that we're trying to kind of make this represent, a lot of them are this like plaster wall and wood beam interior. And so I really wanted to transform this space in a way that captures that. So when Rachel posted that video, I was like, well, now I can't not do that. Now I have to do that. And I was like, well, if I'm already buying foam, man, that lighting really keeps switching up on us, doesn't it? I was gonna do a little like cauldron over a fire vignette, so we might as well build a stone fireplace. So basically I've gone insane and we're gonna spend today crafting pub appearance. Hey, you're good. Can you get out of the frame though? Do you know what the frame is? Yeah. Come here, come get Quackula. This is Count Quackula. So anyway, today we are focusing on making foam parts. So we're gonna cut foam to size, we're gonna sculpt it to look like wood, we're gonna maybe do the fireplace today. I haven't fully fleshed out how I'm making it look like stone, so that, I don't know, we'll see. But definitely doing the boards today. So let's get to it. So we're starting out with foam insulation boards. You can get these at any home improvement store. They're fairly inexpensive. They're definitely not like cheap, but a lot cheaper than anything else you could get to make something like this. So you've got to peel this kind of like cellophane layer off of both sides, and then I just marked out the sizes I wanted for the boards. Now I actually started cutting them a lot bigger. You can kind of see here they're, I think, a full 12 inches wide when I first do them, but I pretty quickly decided that they needed to be smaller than that. So here you can see I'm marking the halfway point and cutting them all in half again. Now we're going to take this tool called a rasp, and we're going to use this to kind of rough up the edges and ends of the board so that they look not so clean cut. We want those like raw edges like a board would have. And as you can see, I am wearing my respirator. It's important when you're shaving foam like this or heating foam that you wear some kind of mask or respirator just to protect your lungs. But you can really go crazy on this stuff. You really can't overdo it. And when you're done, you should have something that looks kind of like this. Now we're going to rough the boards up even more and add grain using a wire brush. This is the worst step. This work was so backbreaking. You really have to put a lot of pressure on the brush to get it to dig into the foam. So you'll see here that I kind of end up straddling the boards and putting my whole body weight down on the brush to really pull it through. And you're going to want to run the brush both ways to get alternating wood grains so that it doesn't look like it's all going from one place on the brush. You can also use it to go over your ends and any places you've created marks or divots to really rough those up as well. Okay, I don't have my mic on, so hopefully you can hear this. But here is what, oh, that light, whoa. Here's what we're working with. I think they're looking pretty cool. I'm trying to add some like divots and things, like chewed out sides by like taking the wire brush really hard to the edge. I think we're getting somewhere. So I'm gonna be working on this forever. We still have all these to do. Now that I have a technique though, I think it won't take as long. I'm gonna do all these and then we'll start painting. I am so hot and like my face is so red. It took literally all day and I am a sweaty, disgusting mess. But they are carved and I think they look really, really good. I'm trying to get some detail. There we go. Yay! Yay, they look great. Okay, I need to go shower. So we'll get painting these soon. Good morning. So it is time to paint these suckers. Of course my neighbor is weed whacking. That makes perfect sense to me. Just to be clear, it's like 8:45 on a Wednesday. Seeing these this morning, I'm really happy with how they came together. I'm so sore today. Definitely, if you're doing these on your driveway, like I did, wear knee pads. My 31-year-old knees are screaming at me today, but I'm really happy with how they look and we're gonna get to painting them. This is gonna be a multi-step process, but it should go pretty quickly. So first, we're gonna lay down a base layer on all of them. And I'm gonna do kind of like a gradient base layer to build on top of, starting light and working our way to the deeper tones. So first, I'm just using acrylic craft paint. I watched quite a few tutorials on like painting foam like this, and everybody who does haunt stuff was like, yeah, use craft paint, why not? But you can also use like latex exterior paint if you want to, especially if you're putting stuff outside and you want it to be more durable, but since this is going inside my house, this is fine. So we're gonna do a kind of beige taupey color and this kind of like, I don't know, fawn brown, like sienna-y, lighter brown color. It's getting closer. How exciting. Anyway, okay, I'm gonna stop trying to talk now and I'm just gonna show you. Okay, so that first layer, when it's done, looks like this. This is the first of like 3 layers of this, and it already looks so good. I'm really, really excited. Kind of bring this up so you can see. So you can see I kind of like really blended those 2 colors. So we have a lot of different like variation in color happening. That's what you want. I've been joking, one of our trees has carpenter ants and I've been seeing them like crawling on the foam. I'm like, they're fooled. Okay, these are moving pretty fast, but I got 6 more to do and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, here we are, all painted with the first layer. I think everything looks really cool so far. Honestly, like, if you wanted to, in theory, you could stop here. But obviously we can make it even better. But this is already super cool. So I'm gonna let these dry. I'm gonna eat some lunch. And then we're gonna do a glaze coat with a dark brown. So I will see you in a minute. So this tutorial I watched by Van Oaks said that the next thing to do would be to mix 1 part glazing medium with 1 part like dark brown paint, and then you go over the top of all of this. Now, he did say this is a part where he used like a wood grain tool on top of that, and I don't have that, and I don't really want to go get one. So I might try a little piece of one of these and see if just doing the glazing medium on top gives us, because there's so much texture in the wood already from the carving stage. So I'll see if that like suffices. If it doesn't, we might have to make another Lowe's trip. But I'm hoping I can achieve the same thing without it. So we're gonna mix 1 to 1 and try it out. Let me tell y'all, that was a real trust the process situation, because I started putting this brown over everything and it started kind of like clouding out everything I had done to these so far, and I got very anxious and just like stood and stared at one for a minute until it dried completely. But because this has that glazing agent in it, it kind of surfaces to the top, and a lot of it kind of like mellows out as it dries. So it's coming together really well, I think, and I can still pop highlights and things. I'm gonna go back in and dry brush these with a light brown in some areas and a couple shades of green. We're gonna do some like lichen and moss on these, but we're getting really close. I think I'm gonna finish up, I gotta let this completely dry down, and then I'm gonna finish up detail work on these. I gotta paint the sides with that dark brown because they're kind of showing that pink foam, but then I think we'll be done with these, and we'll take one inside and see how it looks. All right, a new day. I'd like to first apologize if the like editing and just like continuity of this video is kind of messy. There have been so many projects over the span of so many days that I honestly, I don't even know where we're at this point. But the glaze layer on the boards is dry. I spent so much time going in with like a small detail brush and stippling in all the edges, all the like crevices that were still kind of showing foam. It took probably 5 hours of just like tiny detail work to make them really clean, which to be honest, you don't need to do that if you're making these. That was for my own personal preference because I plan on keeping these props for a really long time, and I just want to do them right the first time so that they look good and they're done. But they dried down and the glaze looks so good, y'all. Like, these have no business looking this much like wood. Let me show you. Like, look how good this looks. Look at the detail. I really love the ones that have like chunks out of them, like down here. I think that looks so good, and it looks really realistic, honestly. So today we are finishing these. We have very few steps left. I'm gonna do a dry brush coat of kind of like a gray almost. Actually, if you look at my falling off my house porch that is in terrible shape, You can see like how the wood has grayed out in certain areas. That's what we're going to try to achieve on these. We're going to make kind of a gray light highlight color to dry brush just to get some more weathering. I also have a spray bottle that I thought we might dilute some black paint and like spray just to get seep into those like wood grain crevices, because we just want as much dimension as possible. And with the foam, it's hard to like get a larger chip brush or something in there. So I think if we spray them with a really thinned out paint and let it kind of run and then wipe it off, we'll get a lot of depth in those wood grain places. And then lastly, we're going to go in and stipple with like some different shades of kind of gray and green and yellow to make moss and lichen. And honestly, I have some moss, and I think we might also take some Mod Podge and like actually put some moss, some three-dimensional moss in some areas too, just to give extra texture. Texture is what sells a prop and makes it not look like foam. So we're trying to just achieve as much texture as possible with this next like distressing step. And this is where we get to have fun, because when you're distressing, it doesn't need to look good. It doesn't need to look perfect. You're making it look old and messy. So I'm excited about this step. We're gonna have a lot of fun and just make these look rotted. All right, hey, would you look at that? We're inside. The beams are done. They look so good. Y'all, I'm really proud of these. There was a moment where I started doubting myself and I was like, these look weird, and like they looked like a bad like ghillie suit. It was like bad camo. But trust the process. Always trust the process. And the great thing about paint is you literally can't mess it up, because you can always just go back over it with more paint and fix it. But these look sick. Like I'm so proud of these, and I honestly think because I could have made an entire video just detailing this process, I think I'm going to do like a step-by-step on Patreon for any of you who want to recreate these, because it was a lot of steps. It took me, I'm going to be very real with you because you saw a lot of this, it took me 3 full days of like 7 hours a day to do this. So it's definitely not a quick or simple process per se, but these are so dope and I'm gonna be able to reuse them forever now. So really happy with how they came out. So now what we're gonna do is kind of figure out where we want to put these in the room. And the one like bad thing is that this board comes in 8-foot slabs and I have 10-foot ceilings. So the way we're gonna get around that is we're gonna match them up with the top, and anywhere that there is a beam, we're just gonna like put something on the floor to kind of cover that up. I don't think it will make or break, you know, the realistic lookingness of it. In a couple places though, like over the door frames, I think we can line it up with the bottom, and then the like inch or two up top we can fill with a horizontal beam. So I'm gonna try to make it look like the doors are framed out in this wood. I'm gonna put one across the curtain rod to kind of give a beam there and cover this very like modern gold curtain rod. I think I like the idea of kind of butting some of them up together on corners like that, so that it looks like a really like a larger beam. I don't know, I had like a very general plan when I made them. I was like, I want 8, and so I made 9 in case I need to cut one into pieces to like fill some gaps. But I think we're in good shape and we're gonna be able to make something really cool here. And then once we have these beams up on the walls, that's kind of the base for all this, and we'll be able to start boogieing forward on all the other really fun, extravagant, crazy things I have planned for this room. So let's get to it.
I ended up finding that the best way to attach these foam boards to the wall was with Velcro tabs. You can stick them right to the board with both pieces already attached to each other, and then just line it up where you want it on the wall and press it in so that the other adhesive sticks to the wall. Because these boards are so light, the Velcro holds it really easily, and it makes it really easy to move them around if you need to shift it at all, and it's not going to damage your walls. For the one on the curtain rod, I just attached some string with hot glue and tied it in a couple places, specifically around the anchor points of the curtain rod so that it wouldn't obstruct my ability to open and shut my curtains. Then once I had everything attached, I just flipped the board down and the rod held it nicely in place.
Okay, everything else in the room is in chaos, but the beams are on the walls with the Velcro tabs, and they look really good. There's those two. I'm gonna have to center the hutch between those two. And then there's the one on the window and the one on the other doorway. Overall, thrilled with how that all came together. I think ideally I would have had like 2 or 3 more to play with, just because I forgot how much of them was going to be going to like covering trim and stuff, but that's okay. I can always make more in the future. This is what I want to continue doing with the dining room moving forward. Now that I've committed to the bit this much, we're gonna just keep building on it year after year. So it's fine. We'll make more at another time, but this is a really good start. They look awesome. So as far as this one over here, I decided to go all the way into this corner because this corner is where we're gonna have something else happening that'll go up all the way to the top there, and it's going to cover the thermostat and hide that whole corner, so it doesn't matter that doesn't go all the way. We'll never see that. So I wanted it to touch the wall over there, plus hiding that intake vent, which is nice, but it's not actually covering it, so it can still do its job, but it makes it a little less obvious. But yeah, I think we're in good shape to move on to the next step, which is unfortunately more foam work. So see you then. All right, so here is our next behemoth that we have to tackle. So this is going to be the corner where the faux fireplace goes. I've got this big sheet of foam. I also have one more if we need it. I don't know if we're going to need it though. I think we can kind of get what we need here out of this. So I think we're going to kind of catty corner it. And then we'll take a chunk out, obviously, for the like hearth of the fireplace. And I originally was going to do a much more elaborate stone technique for this, but we just don't have time to do that for this particular video. So I found a much simpler way to do this. So we're going to draw out kind of what we want our stones to look like. First, I'm going to make sure to cut this and get it the shape we want it so that the stones all overlap any places where the foam meets, so it looks more cohesive. And hopefully we'll end up with something that looks like a fireplace.
So this is the reference image I found for kind of what I'm going for, and this is the cauldron that we're going to be hanging in the hearth of the fireplace. So I need to first measure out my opening. I took some general measurements of the cauldron just to make sure that the opening would be tall enough and wide enough so that you could see the whole thing and we could get it in there without damaging the opening of the fireplace. I just made some marks on the foam for those measurements and drew out a little arch to cut out later. Then I headed outside and took my box cutter again and just cut out this archway. And then using a Sharpie, I just started drawing out my stone pattern. It definitely helps if you have a reference image for kind of what you're going for. You certainly don't have to copy and paste the image, but just so you kind of get an idea of how different patterns of stones can lay, etc. Our brains have a tendency to make patterns, and that can make things look not realistic. So by using a real image to kind of give your brain something to go off of, it prevents that unnatural look when you're drawing these stones. Make sure that if you're using more than one foam piece like I am here, that you line them up while you're drawing so that your stones overlap the crease rather than ending and starting again. That will help make the two pieces look more cohesive when you're cutting out your stones. Our next step is to take this wire brush drill bit attachment, and I'm testing it here first on a scrap piece of foam before I take it to my nicely drawn out fireplace piece. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you get it, this is really easy to just take into the areas between the stones you drew and create a grout-like texture. I found it easiest to hold the brush at a bit of a sideways angle rather than straight down into the foam. This created a much nicer texture and didn't leave any weird wire brush marks behind.
Good morning. It started positively pouring down rain while I was working on this yesterday, so I had to cut my carving short, but this is working really, really well. I got this much done in like, I don't know, 15 minutes maybe. Got about a quarter of the way done. So this is a really great technique. Works super fast. And once you get the hang of it, it's like, it moves really, really quickly. There was definitely a learning curve to just like figuring out moving the brush in the right direction to like get the desired effect and to not leave weird texture marks and stuff. But now that I understand that, I think the rest of this will take me like maybe 30 minutes, and then we'll lay down our first coat of like base paint and let that dry, and we'll work on some other stuff while we're waiting to do all the, fancy paint touches to this. It is 58 degrees. The difference in my like attitude on working the last 2 days versus when we were making the wood last week and it was like 96 outside and humid. Like now I'm like having the time of my life. I'm like, yeah, let's make 12 more boards. I'm ready. Couple of developments. First, and most obviously, I had to take my makeup off and my contacts out because I dropped a panel of foam on my face and got so much foam dust in my eyes. I had to flush them out. Don't know why I even bothered wearing makeup for a build day, but here we are. Second thing is I took it inside and tried it out. It looks really awesome. I'm not going to show you that yet, but The top panel that fell on my face did come detached, so we need to reconstruction glue it. But before we do that, we gotta trim just like a 1/4 inch off the top because it doesn't quite fit snug. It's a little bit too big. But luckily though, we have just the top panel free, so I'm gonna mark a 1/4 inch off there. And then we're gonna bring the whole thing back outside and, well, glue it back together and then start painting. All right, hey team. I have a really bad migraine today and I'm trying to kind of like work through it. But I finished painting late last night. I brought it in today, and to be honest, the fireplace looks a little bit more like arts and craftsy than I would have liked for it to. Like the wood is so convincing, you know? The fireplace kind of looks like fake stone, but it still looks good. I'm still happy with it overall. After my migraine nap, I was like, I'm gonna at least try to like set up the fireplace today, so that's done. And I brought it in. There have been some developments. Everything's fine, but I've changed my mind again, and that's dangerous. But let's take a look at it. So you know that the top part that I had construction adhesived together at the top, it kept coming apart. Every time I moved it, it fell apart, which is that like glue is made for construction foam, so I don't know why that was happening. But then I was like, well, maybe there's a reason. Maybe there's a reason that it's not staying like that. Please ignore the mishmash of decorations on the table. Anyway, I had gotten this from Spirit with the intention of using it as like the cauldron flame light. And like, first of all, not to be a brat about it, but it's like so disappointing. I don't know, it looks better. Honestly, the camera is making it look 1,000 times better than it does in real life. It's just like very, I don't know, like very not, it's not giving. Anywho, point being, when I put it inside the fireplace, and then I tried to like kind of put the cauldron over it, I was like, oh, I actually don't, I don't like the way this looks, because the flame was so close to the ground, and the cauldron was like hanging in there so at an angle, basically like with the dining room table in the room, you can't even see it. Like you wouldn't even see the opening of the fireplace because it's on the floor basically. So then I had the thought, and this is like obviously very hillbilly rigged right now, but I had the thought to raise the fireplace up on some kind of apparatus and use that top piece as the hearth instead of the top. So it would still go all the way to the ceiling because it's still the same, distance. But this raises it up so that the opening is at a more like appealing height and you can actually see the fire and the cauldron. Granted, of course, the negative being that the stones now don't like align at the bottom, which though, I mean, for a hearth piece is usually kind of a separate platform anyway, so I don't think it's going to bother me that much. I also just think it makes it look more correct. Like the feeling I was having when I was looking at it before, where I was getting that kind of arts and crafts vibe, and it just kind of looked like a two-dimensional fireplace. Adding that hearth level, I feel like, is making it look more realistic, more believable. And of course, we're gonna, coat that back in something black so that it looks not like there's just a wall there. And it gives us a place to hide some lighting down lower so we can get more of a flame effect. I think we're gonna go back to square one from this guy, because this was $30, and I think for the same price I can get like a fire and ice projector light. And of course, because I'm me, there's another DIY kind of thing idea that I had that I'd kind of let go to make some like smoldering logs under the cauldron. And now that we're gonna have like a proper hearth, I think I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And I think between those and the like fire and ice projector, it'll look a lot more like there's an actual fire going rather than that light. And it's not gonna make so much noise, because that air blower, I feel like, just isn't gonna match the vibe of the room. That being said, I have a few errands to run to finish that, and I don't want to do that today because I have a migraine. So what we're going to do instead today to keep pushing forward on this, we need to make our vine garlands, I guess you could call them. So I have a bunch of packages of fake ivy. 636 feet, I believe, to be exact. And it's all like these individual strands, but they're all zip tied together. So what I want to do is create basically a bunch of different lengths of this hanging from the ceiling so that it feels like the cottage is like overgrown really heavily. And I think the best way to do that in a like efficient, time effective way is to create like strings of it that I can attach. So I'm going to try to use fishing line and attach, lengths that go this length of the dining room, attach like, 20 vines of different varying lengths across that. And then we can just go in and tack the fishing line to either side of the ceiling. So I'm gonna work on those because I know it's gonna take a really long time. It's probably gonna take me the rest of the night to make these. I've really done it to myself this time, y'all. Let's get to it. I got to work cutting 1 foot, 2 foot, and 3 foot strands of the ivy. I found that at 3 feet, that was about the right length so that people wouldn't be getting tangled up in the ivy as they walked through my dining room. As I mentioned earlier, I have 10-foot ceilings, so you may want to trim them even shorter or longer depending on what the length of your ceiling is. Then I started hot gluing these, and of course, I've learned from my previous mistakes. Hot glue fingies. I started by doing these just in my lap, which honestly was not very effective. So later down the line, I actually ended up tying my 10-foot strands of fishing line between 2 tripods so that it was taut, and just went down the line gluing a strand every few inches or so, and that worked really well. So now we're getting to work on those logs that I mentioned for the cauldron. This is a really quick and easy DIY from Van Oaks Props. You get a orange or red pool noodle and cut it into a few different pieces for your logs. You're gonna rip them instead of cut them clean because the rougher edges are better for the logs. Then you're gonna take something sharp like a sculpting tool, which is what I'm using here, and just scrape wood grain into these logs like this. You can really go at it and pull the stuff out of the pool noodle. Just be careful that you don't go all the way through it.
again, much like our fireplace, you want to make sure you're creating alternating patterns so that it looks like wood grain, not like stripes or something. Once you're happy with how they look, you're going to take some black acrylic and just go over all the high points. You don't want to get down in those crevices you've created because you want that red or orange to show through. That's what's going to create that effect like the log is burning. Then once that layer dries, you're going to take a lighter gray and do a dry brushing on top. Of course, dry brushing means that you're going to take most of the paint off the brush and just go over the high points. You don't want to cover up that black completely, but it's going to create that ashy look that logs get when they've been burning for a long time. And when you're done, they should look a little something like this. I would say all in all, this took me about half an hour minus the paint dry time, and they are so effective and cool. Next, I started working on the apparatus for the fireplace hearth. So I had some leftover insulation foam and decided to cut a triangle that would fit into that corner of my wall to use as the base. Once I had that cut out, I just used some of the leftover black paint from the fireplace to paint the hearth black. And once it was dry, I attached it to the fireplace. Here you see me adding that hearth piece down low instead of at the top and connecting this new piece kind of in the break point between the two stone pieces. I'm using a high-powered Gorilla Glue hot glue gun, so this is really, really strong. Definitely use a strong glue for this foam if you want it to hold, but be sure to watch your fingers. Now I'm just creating a backing for the fireplace. I got this black paper in a package recently and decided to save it because I thought it might be good to use for something, and I'm so glad I did. This was perfect for creating the backdrop for the fireplace. I just used painter's tape to stick it up to the wall and cut a little hole out of it for my outlet so that we have access to that for our lighting. And here is that bottom piece of the fireplace. I'm just propping it up with a cardboard box that I eventually hot glued it to for support. Now we're going to install this metal plant hanger. This is just like a patio plant hanger you can get from any home improvement store. I got mine from Lowe's, and we're going to drill this into the stud of the wall. This cauldron is from Target a couple years ago, and it is metal and it is heavy, so I want to be sure that this is really secure in the wall and that it's not going to go anywhere or destroy our hard work from making our fireplace. Now I'm going to add the logs to the hearth, so I've got these LEDs, just an LED strip that you can set the color. I'm going to turn mine red. And we're going to just string them through all of these logs. You obviously could use different strands or battery-powered strands for each log, but really with the glow of the fireplace, you don't even really need to. It kind of disguises itself if you pull them all the way into the logs. And then when they're all stacked up and they're on, they look like they are smoldering.
Hello. I feel like one of those ASMR channels that have like I'm like, hello, weary traveler. Welcome into my tavern. So it's been a couple of days since I've done like a talking head catch up with you. I haven't been chatting on camera. I just kind of put my head down and got through some of these big projects. So I wanted to take a second and catch you up as to where we are right now. We are in the home stretch, I think, finally. I am certainly hoping that today is our last day because I am exhausted. And we have another really big project to move on to and get through in the next couple weeks. So today has got to be it. We gotta wrap this up. But before we move into these final detail steps, let me show you what we've gotten done. The fireplace is done. It looks so good. I am so happy with how this came out. There were many steps along the way with this where I was like, this is just not gonna look how I wanted it to look, because it kind of just kept coming out more like, I don't know, like cartoony than I wanted. But I think now that we've got the lighting in there, the logs look so good. That is such a fun and easy effect, and it looks Like, it just makes a really big impact, I think. I don't know if you can see from your angle, but I added some moss, like sponging to the fireplace wall, which I think looks really good. We switched it up. We made the top of the fireplace the hearth. We got the kettle hung to the wall. Like, everything just came together. It looks really, really good. We also, of course, got all the ivy hung up, which looks really cool. It took forever, but I think it was worth it. It's really fun. I won't do it in this video, but eventually I am going to go back and add some strands going this way, because if you look at it from certain angles like this, they're just hanging in like rows because we hung it on fishing line. So that's not like completely selling the effect, but I also at this point don't really care. I also added a little more moss to the backing boards for the hutch. Not too much, because honestly, when we put a bunch of stuff in there, you don't see the whole backing board anyway. But that's it. The big stuff is done. So now, today, what we're doing, we're dressing the table. We're putting stuff in the hutch. We're dressing the set. We're putting actual decor in here now that the whole like base is laid. And then we'll go in and add some additional lighting outside of the fireplace as well. We'll do like some par lights and some candles. Just get everything looking extra spooky and cozy. And then we'll be done just in time for me to enjoy it for 30 days. All right, this room's not gonna decorate itself. Let's get cracking. So starting with the table, I got this really large gauzy cloth. I couldn't decide what I wanted to do for a tablecloth. Everything looked too nice. And then I thought, really what I want is just creepy cloth, but make it really, really big. So I got this, and it's actually too long. So I double layered it over the table, which ended up being nice. It added more texture and more color to cover up that white table. Now I'm going in with a fake moss table runner. I found this at Party City. I was shocked, and I got it for like $10. Really great deal for this. I was originally going to just use loose moss, but this gives us a nice base to work from. Adding these 2 candelabras I found at HomeGoods, and these candlesticks. These are originally from Target, from the Threshold line a few years ago, but I found 5 of them at an estate sale for $20 total for the 5, which I think originally they were like $10 a piece, so that was a steal. I've got this giant crow from At Home. I love him. I picked him up this year and knew I wanted him to be the centerpiece of this table. And it was about this point that I realized I didn't like how blunt the table runner was. I really wanted it to look more organic, so I decided to cut it. Not a whole lot, but just give it some softer edges, some rounded corners, just so it didn't look like a flat square of moss. It looked more like, how moss would actually grow on a table. I added a couple of shorter candles and these LED tapers, and then I went in with my Spanish moss that I got from Michael's a couple years ago. I love this stuff. I use it all the time, everywhere. I like it the more taupey natural color too. I just think it adds some good dimension. I've got these skulls that we 3D printed for the spring mantle a couple years ago, if you guys remember that. So I'm adding those, and then adding some loose moss on top of that runner just to make it look like everything is being overgrown a little. So I'm kind of adding that on top of the bases of the candelabras, on top of the candles, just to give us a little more dimension. I got these adorable Black Widow spider stoneware plates from Target this year, and I really thought they would go well in the space, and they definitely do. Now we're going to start working on the hutch. The hutch is always one of my favorite places to decorate. I just love how much room there is to play in here and have fun. I have all kinds of weird tchotchkes to place in here. My idea for this space is that this witch is kind of an ornithologist and an entomologist, and she's just got birds and bugs and all kinds of things to help you with any kind of ailment that you might have.
I always like to add some of my own witchy items from around my home into the hutch for this. So I've got my Antique Anatomy Tarot that I'm adding a few cards. I also added some of my own like smudging bundles and things of that nature. I wanted to use this bat I got from Joann, so I hot glued it inside this old Target cloche. I've had it forever and I very rarely use it, so I thought this would be a great way to repurpose it. Now I'm stacking up these little cauldrons here. I got this little bubbler thing at Spirit Halloween, and I was trying to use it in these, but I didn't really like the way that it came out. It just wasn't holding in there, and because the top cauldron was so small, it wasn't really putting out much of a bubbling effect as I thought it would. So I ended up repurposing this. I finally found a way to make it work the original way I wanted to use it, and you'll see that right now in the reveal.
Well, wowee, what a journey this has been. I am exhausted, but I could not be more just absolutely enamored, enthralled, proud, excited, just like in pure wonderment of how this all came together. You know, you set out to do something, to make something, and you never know if it's going to look how it looked in your head. But we got pretty darn close, and I just keep thinking, like, my dining room looks like a magazine. This looks like somebody professional did it, which I guess in theory I'm professional. I'm so happy. It feels really immersive, which was my hope, that it would feel like you'd kind of entered this other space. I can say without a doubt, as far as decor goes, this is the best thing I've ever done. I think obviously my favorite part is the fireplace. That really came together like in a way that I didn't anticipate. I kind of had hit a wall with it at one point during this project where it accepted that it just wasn't going to work out the way I thought it was. And then what do you know? You trust the process and it all comes together in the end. I want to say a huge thank you to all the other creators, makers, and artists who inspired me for this setup. Of course, Rachel Maxey, thank you for the great beam idea and the fireplace idea. Thank you to Drew from Darker Homes and Gardens for inspiring the vines and the table setup and sending me some links to some things. He provided me with a link to the exact vines that he used for his dining room project, and that was really helpful because these were definitely the best ones to use. Huge shout out to Wicked Makers for the kind of application of the bubble effect in the cauldron, and a huge thank you to Van Oaks Props on YouTube. If y'all are doing any kind of like home haunt situation, he is your guy. Go check out his channel. The logs were his DIY. A lot of the techniques I used on the wood were from his channel. I also did a lot of research on how to like paint the fireplace stones and things from him. So overall, he was a huge part of bringing this together for me. So please be sure to go check out all of those artists and makers. They are fantastic and have obviously inspired me so much to create something really beautiful. I also want to say a thank you to all of you for watching and for being so patient with me. I'm still kind of like getting back in the feeling of being back on YouTube, and I did not anticipate this to take me this long, but I mean, I wouldn't have it any other way. If I had rushed through it, it would not have been what it is, so I'm really happy with it, and I hope that y'all think it was worth the wait. Happy October. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for 50,000 subscribers. That happened like in the midst of filming this, and it's just like, it's wild. It's wild to be here. We will do something to celebrate as soon as I get through these next couple October projects. The next video is something kind of insane. I can't believe it's happening, and I'm so freaking excited. So please, if you're not already, subscribe to the channel and hang out with us because you're gonna want to see this. Trust me. And as always, if you'd like to see me in between videos, you can follow me on Instagram or check out my Patreon in the description box below. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and until next time, keep it campy, kooky, glamorous, and spooky. Bye!